Okay, we're going to do a quick demonstration reminder of the while loop and how it works so that you can use a while loop in your assignment for today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through an example. Here is an example of a program that does not have a while loop. This is a program that asks for a person's list of favorite boy names. And so you can see here, as we first of all need to get the pointer here. So we have a variable called fav name. We're going to ask for a list of favorite boy names, and then we're going to read the name, and then we're going to say you like, let's say they say Charles, we're going to say you like Charles for a boy's name. That's be printed on the screen, and then it'll say thank you for your list of favorite boy names. That's how it is written right now, which is kind of silly because it says thank you for your list, but you've only given one name. So we need to add a loop that's going to allow you to add more names. So right now it just has one name and then thank you for your list. We're going to add a loop now that's going to make this make more sense. So the template of a while loop, what you have is you have statements of code that you already written that you want to repeat. So I would suggest, of course, that you write all your code first before you actually add a while loop. And then you decide, okay, what statements of code do I want to repeat? And then there's going to be statements of code that will take place after kicking out of the loop, once the loop is done. So to this template, we're going to have a counter. So part of a while loop, you need a counter. Some variable that's going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. You can name it counter, you can name it number, you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it counter because that's what it does, is counts. And it's an int, and because it's counting by ones. And then the next thing we're going to add here is while, and then in parentheses is going to be the condition or the logical test. It's going to be in parentheses, no semicolon. And something that I do often is I forget to put semicolons up here. So the next thing that's going to happen, and this has to take place before the first statement of code that you want to repeat. Okay, so you're going to have the beginning brace and the while before the first statement of code that you want to repeat. Then you're going to have an ending brace. So you put that at after the last statement of code that you want to repeat, or in other words, before the first statement of code that's going to take place after you've been finished with the loop. The other thing we need to have for a while loop is to increase or increment the counter. And so we're going to increase it by 1, which is, so all I have to do is use the plus plus right here. So this, of course, is going to go in here before the loop is finished. The loop will take place between the two braces. So this, every time that this, after going through the statements of code, it'll have the counter being incremented, and then it'll go back and make a decision on whether it goes through the loop again. And so here's how that works. Here's the demonstration. Here's the program that I've already shown you without the while loop, and we're going to add while loops to it. So we see here that we want to repeat these three statements of code. And so we have to put our while stuff around it. And so the first thing we're going to do is add the counter. And the counter right now has a value of 1. It's been assigned 1. And then we're going to add the while and the condition or the logical test with the parentheses and no semicolon. And so we want to do 4 names. Therefore, the counter is going to start at 1. It's going to go through the loop. 2 go through the loop. 3 loop, and then 4 go through the loop. So we'll get 4 names out of this program before it ends by itself. Then we want to make sure you add the beginning brace, which goes before the first line of code that's to be repeated, and then add the ending brace that goes in after the last statement of code to be repeated, or before the first statement that's not going to be repeated. And then, so here's what happens. We have to add one more thing, and that's the counter being incremented, and this is how it works then. So you start with the program from the beginning. It has the counter is 1, and then 1 is less than or equal to -4, so it jumps into the braces, into the loop, and it asks the question for the favorite boy name. It reads it, and then it prints you like, let's say, Charles for a boy's name, and then it adds 1 to the counter variable, so now instead of 1 it becomes 2. And so then it sees this end brace of the loop and goes back to while and checks out the condition. So the question is 2 less than or equal to -4 or to 4? And it is, so it jumps in the loop, goes through this process again, adds 1 to the counter, and so now it becomes 3. And then it sees this ending brace, it goes back to the while loop, or the while, checks out the condition, is 3 less than or equal to 4? And yes, it is. So it goes on and does all this stuff in here again, and then it goes to counter and adds 1, and now that becomes 4. And then it sees this ending breaks, goes back in here, and it checks out the counter. Is the counter 4 less than or equal to 4, which it is, goes through all these statements again, and then hits the counter, adds 1 to it, it becomes 5. Then it sees the end brace, and it goes, I got to go back here, check things out. Is 5 less than or equal to 4, which it's not. So because it's not, it kicks out of the loop and goes over here past the last brace, which is right here. It goes past that brace and goes to the next line of code and prints, thank you for your list of favorite boys' names. That's what happens. That makes it now, it stops by itself because of the use of the counter. And so here's how it goes. After we've done it, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 responses, and then it will say, and I forgot to write this, type this in here, but then it will say thank you for your list of names. Okay, and that's how it works. So this is the end of the demonstration of the while loop. Now the next video is going to do a quick explanation of the assignment.